Hello everybody. I wanted to hop on and do a quick Periscope. I'm working on the new Give Me Jesus journal. I've got a little bit of a cold, so if I sound nasally, I'm sorry, but I'm working on the new Give Me Jesus journal, and I wanted to hop on and talk about dreaming big and a little bit about my process of how I create a journal. So first of all, I'm just going to start off showing you literally in my office right now. So this is where I'm standing, and this is sort of how I'm creating the journal. I have been journaling for years. This actually, all of those, that's like just a small handful of the journals that I have. And every time that I start creating a new journal, hey mama, that's my sweet mom. Every time I start creating a new journal, I basically lay it all out before the Lord, and I go back through my old journals. So I read through just different ones that I've journaled through for years. And I just look through them and see what God taught me in the process of journaling, and I kind of go through that. So I'm going to, I'll reference this, but I wanted to show y'all a little bit of how my process goes and just talk about dreaming big. So, all right, can y'all hear me okay? I just want to make sure you can hear me before I get going. Is everybody there? Awesome. Okay, so normally when we start Periscopes, I normally ask where you are, what you're doing, but today I want to do something different. Let me grab my notes really quick. Okay, today I want to ask y'all a different question. So, first of all, have you ever dreamed big? So that's my first question. Have you ever dreamed big? Is there, and I can also ask it this way, is there a big dream that's on your heart right now? So y'all can just kind of answer. So I've got some yeses, some not reallys. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. So I've got some big dreamers on here. I've got some people who don't know if they're big dreamers on here, which I think is really fun too, because we're just going to talk about, flesh it out. What does this look like in our day-to-day life? So first question, have you ever dreamed big? Second question, have you ever dreamed big or done something and felt like you failed? So that's my second question. Have you ever dreamed big, had just something really big on your heart and maybe tried to do it and you just felt like you failed? So has anybody been in the failure, feeling like you failed? You've been frozen by fear. I saw somebody said that all the time. Yes. Okay, so I see someone said they failed miserably. Professional face planner. I see that, Susie. Yes, you've been fearful to try. Okay, so I wanted to start off with those two questions because I feel like this is something that we've all been there before. And I wanted to share a little bit about my own story of how God has brought me through failure and what he's taught me about dreaming big. And what does this even look like? I feel like we hear the words dream big a lot these days, and it can kind of feel like this really big concept. And what does that look like if you're a stay-at-home mom? What does that look like if you're a student or if you're just in the professional workplace? What does it mean to really dream big? And I feel like I went into starting a business in 2013, and I feel like I went into it with the concept of dreaming big as just something that's super easy. I kind of idealized what that looked like, and I had a lot of ideas on my heart for how LifeLiveBeautifully was going to take shape. And a lot of y'all don't even know this. When I first started LifeLiveBeautifully, I created jewelry. If y'all followed me for a really long time, since the very beginning, you know, I made jewelry in the beginning. I made, goodness, I can't even remember all the things I made. I made iPad covers. Y'all, I say this because this is hilarious. iPad covers. I tried every single thing. And I remember I thought that I was going to be just the craft show person. I was going to go to craft shows and it was going to be awesome. I made scarves. Somebody saw that. I don't know who that was that said that, but yes, I made scarves, all kinds of things. And I went through about 6 months of just striving. I did everything. I went to my very first craft show and I had it all planned out. I thought it was going to be this major success and that I was just going to sell out of everything that I made. And I'm going to be totally honest with y'all, that very first craft show was the very first thing that I ever really did, put so much work into it. And almost nobody came by my booth. I mean, it was 2 days of sitting in over 100-degree weather. Literally, I poured my heart out and I worked so hard on everything. And people just walked right by me. Some of them were just like, who is that person? And the target audience at this craft show, I didn't do any research. It was people that were at least 60s and above, like totally not my target market, absolutely nothing. And I barely made back my ticket booth or my booth registration fee. And I remember leaving that going, God, why would you put this dream on my heart and let me fail? Why would I work so hard and put forth so much of my heart and my passions, and I just loved being creativity? Why would I do all of this and fail? And I do the word fail. I'm going to do this in quotes because I really was measuring my success by numbers. I was measuring it by things that I sold, by compliments I received, by the attention that I got, and not measuring my success by, okay, God has called me to be obedient. He's called me to use the way that He's created me, which I love creating art. I love writing, and I love doing things like that. I wasn't measuring my success by, okay, I'm obeying the Lord. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but that's what success is. It's obeying the Lord. Jesus never promised us that we're going to have the biggest numbers in our sales, the biggest applause or anything like that. Jesus didn't promise you that your big dream is going to be this huge thing in this world. And I think that that's where we get dreaming big wrong, is that we idealize this dreaming big thing. We idealize it into thinking that it's going to make our name great, or maybe we're going to build this huge platform, or I'm going to start this business and it's going to just take off. And I went through it was over 6 months, and if you followed me in the very beginning, which it was only personal friends, that followed me during that season, but if you had followed me from then, you know that I just strove a lot. I just tried to do everything and nothing was working. And I was looking to other people to define what dreaming big was. I was looking to numbers to define if I was doing it right, instead of looking to the Lord and saying, okay, God, what have you called me to do? And letting the parameters of what Jesus said and all of these things that He laid out for us, instead of letting that literally define what dreaming big was in my life. And so I went through over 6 months of feeling like a major failure. I mean, I just can't even tell you how many things I tried. And I tried something and it just didn't work. It didn't, maybe it sold a little bit. I mean, I still have things in my office that I made during that season that did not sell. So I just want you all to know that. I kind of keep it just to look at it and go, wow, like God brought me through so much. But I believe that season was necessary in my life for Him to teach me that success is not in numbers. And that if we try to define success in numbers, and it's going to literally steal the joy out of our lives. It's going to steal the obedience that God has called us to do. Whenever I look at Jesus, He didn't have this giant following. He stayed with these disciples, and there were so many people who did not like Him. I mean, they literally hung our Savior on a cross. And were we back then, we would have done the same thing in our flesh and in our sin. And yet Christ, He is the biggest success in all of the world. And you know what He did? He emptied Himself to the point of death on a cross. He emptied Himself. He literally gave up everything about, He deserved everything, and yet He gave it all up just so that we could know Him. And so I started to look, after that season, okay, what does Jesus say about dreaming big? What does He say about obedience? And when you look to His life, you see this life of service and He didn't care about what the words of man were saying. He cared about what His Father said. He just cared about being obedient to His Father. My Bible's on the ground. I'm going to grab it really quick because I just think of this verse in Hebrews. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up. And my friend Rachel, I don't know if she's on here, but I just love this. She even posted it the other day. It's these 2 words in Hebrews. I should have had this pulled up. So in Hebrews 12, 1 through 2, it talks about, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. And it talks about running this race, but we've got to throw off everything that entangles us. So that fear that's in your life, that insecurity, and even measuring our success by numbers, we've got to throw that off, and we need to run the race that's before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And then the next verse, I love this part. It says, consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. Now, these verses are key to dreaming big for God's glory. They are key because it tells us exactly what to do. It says literally, people are watching us no matter where you are, even if you are only in your house all day long, you have people watching you in your circle. And so the things that you do, it doesn't have to be in this huge platform. Faithfulness begins small in the everyday, in the mundane, in the places that nobody sees. And it says that we need to lay aside all of the weights that entangle us. And so for me, during that season of life, whenever I was just striving, some of the things that were entangling me were comparison. And I had set this bar of, okay, this is what my business needs to look like. This is what ministry looks like. This is what other people are doing. If I don't measure up to this, then I'm not enough. And I was measuring myself and the things that I was doing by what other people were doing and saying, instead of by what the Lord had told me to do. And it tells us what to do. It says literally to set our eyes on Jesus, look to Jesus, and run the race that is before you. And so you cannot run the race, you cannot dream big for God's glory and look to the right and to the left. You can't look to what other people are doing. You can't rely on numbers or on compliments or anything to keep you motivated in this race, because if you do, you're just going to flunk out and you're not going to keep going. What the key is looking to Jesus, who is the author and the perfecter of our faith. And one thing that I've learned in this whole process of owning a business, I'm going to keep going in my story, but one of the biggest things that I've learned is that he's not as concerned about the things that you're doing as much as it is about who you are becoming. He wants us to become more Christ-like. And so whether you are maybe pursuing this new thing, or just being faithful, or God just called you to do what you're doing right now in this season well for his glory, he is most concerned about you becoming more like him and loving him. And so we focus so much on the end result. We think, okay, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want it to become, and this is what it's got to be. And when it doesn't get to that point, we're so disappointed and we feel like failures. But if our greatest joy and our greatest purpose in the things that we are doing is to become more like Christ and to look to him, to consider him. This is what my friend Rachel, she just pointed out the other day. Consider him. You can write that on your planner, write it on your hand, write it somewhere. Just consider Jesus as you go and as you dream big for his glory. And what does that look like? I feel like when we talk about dreaming big, we only think of big things. But Jesus, whenever he tells us, when he speaks to us, he talks about being faithful in the little things. He literally tells us that. Be faithful in the little things that you are called to every day. And that is the source of dreaming big, that we get so concerned about doing these big things for the Lord. And there's this quote, and I wrote it down on Instagram the other day, and it's Charles Spurgeon, but he says, so many of us are so concerned about doing all of the big things for the Lord that we don't want to do the little things. Well, most of life is made up of the little things. We see that Jesus was on earth 33 years. There's a whole 30 years of his life that actually we don't even have all that written in the Bible. And Jesus was just being faithful in the little things. And so that's what he's called us to do, to be faithful right where we are. And that is where dreaming big starts. It starts with, hey, God has called me, for me specifically in this season of life, I'm a wife. I have a husband. He has called me to be faithful to him. I have a son who is napping in the other room right now. He's called me to be faithful to him. And then he's also made me to be creative. I love to write. I love to share. I love creating. And so that's me being faithful in the little things, going, okay, God, you made me to do this. I want to do it well for your glory. Now, one point about that, about dreaming big for his glory, is that it's not about I. It's not about me. I actually wrote something. I've got an old journal sitting right here, and I wrote this thing. I said, "Be in me what I cannot be, a woman whose heart is completely free, entangled from this world's desires, burning brightly with a heavenly fire." And I read this earlier. I wrote this years ago, and the Lord just spoke to my heart again that, and I said later on in this, I'm opening up this, I said, I lay my will upon these rocks with trembling hands and wobbly knees. My heart quakes and tosses about. My soul longs to be free. Then I said, send your fire and consume my dreams, Lord. Erase the I in me. Blow away what remains so that I is now he. And that's the prayer that we have to have when we're dreaming big, because if it's about us, if we make it about us, then we're going to be so disappointed in the end, because it's not about us. It's not about the things that we do. And because the Lord knows that's not going to bring us joy. It's all temporary. It's all just going to fade away. But it's about him. It's about the I and us becoming he. We want this prayer to be in me what I cannot be. And so I went for all those days. I think my baby woke up. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me turn this off. So I'll get him in just a second because I want to finish up here. But I went for about 6 months of complete striving and feeling like a failure because I was defining it by the things that I was doing. And God took me to a place where I hit just completely rock bottom. I was saying, God, I felt like I was Peter whenever Peter got out of the boat and was walking on water, and he started looking to the waves and he started to sink. He took his eyes off of Jesus and he started to sink into the waves. And that's what I did in that season, is I took my eyes off of Jesus and I was sinking in the waves. And Jesus, whenever I hit rock bottom and I said, God, I can't do this anymore. I give up. I cannot keep going. That's when I started not to sink anymore. I sunk into Jesus' presence and I sunk into who he is and what he's called me to be. And that's when everything changed. This is actually the journal that I was writing in at that time, at that season of life. And I wrote that to the Lord. I said, God, I can't keep doing this anymore. I'm striving. And this whole dreaming big thing is just not all that it's cracked up to be. And I remember the Lord, he took me to that season, and I don't know if y'all hear Nolan. He's sitting up in his crib. But he took me through that season on purpose because he wanted to show me that if you live this life for yourself, you're just going to run it into the ground. But if you live it for me, there's so much joy. Because in the end, dreaming big, it's not about the numbers. It's not about the success or the platforms or the likes or the comments or anything like that. It's about, at the end of the day, going, Jesus, I did all that I could. I used everything you gave me. I used the passions. I used the places where I live. I used the people that I'm around. I did everything I could for your glory. And at the end of the day and at the end of my life, I want him to look at me and say, well done, good and faithful servant. And that is what dreaming big is all about. And that rock bottom season is where the Lord planted this desire in me to create a journal. And this is, sorry, I should have brought water up here, but this is the very first time that I wrote about the Give Me Jesus journal. And I literally wrote big dreams right there. And I wrote down this idea for a journal. I had no idea. I just want y'all to know, I don't have a graphic design degree. I have no idea how to make a journal. I'd never printed anything before. No idea. I majored in fashion merchandising, not in doing anything like that. And I wrote this down going, this is impossible, Lord. This is impossible. And I journaled about it in here, just going, okay, God, how in the world is this going to go? And how are you going to make this happen? And I won't go into all the details of all of that, because this will be the longest Periscope. But the Lord just began to line up everything as I just began to surrender and say, God, this is not about me. It's about you. Do what you want for your glory. And so this is the journal where that surrender happened and where everything changed. And I began to realize that if I make this whole dream big thing about me, I'm just going to fail in my own strength, because it is about him. It's about him. And if I'm going to let numbers define my success and define if I'm making it or anything, at the end of the day, I'm going to have no joy. But if I can look to Jesus, and like that verse says, if I can just consider Jesus, who went before me, who laid his life down, who emptied himself, who was obedient to the point of death on the cross for his Father, who did his Father's will, if I can do that, then that is what success is. I want the success of my life to be obeying God's calling. And so I don't know what your big dream is. I don't know if it's just something, maybe it's just starting a Bible study with the women in your neighborhood. Maybe it's writing a book. I don't know. Not everybody's called to write a book. Maybe it's going to Africa and doing something with missions there. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the smallest. Maybe it's just something about you want to start baking for people and telling them about Jesus. I'm just thinking of things but don't measure them by a number. I want you just to look and say, Jesus, this is how you've made me. This is what you've called me to do. I'm going to be faithful in the little things. And that is where dreaming big starts. It's not about I, it's about he. It's not about me, it's about him. And that's where everything changes. And that's what makes all of the hard work worth it. Because dreaming big, it's soul scrubbing. It will literally scrub your soul raw sometimes because it's so hard. Every time I create this journal, I get so nervous and just go, I have no idea how to do this. Lord, how do I? And I just give him lots of different excuses about everything possible. And I just think I don't have the time. I don't have the ability. How am I going to do this? Is this going to come together? And I just go through this whole season of just going, how do I do this? And yet God, he just scrubs my soul and he says, listen, it's not about you. If you're going to step out of the boat and you're going to look to the waves, you're just going to sink. But if you keep your eyes on me, consider Jesus, it's worth it. Because the thing that keeps me motivated to create a journal and to write and to do all these things in nap time when my baby's in the other room, I mean, it is so hard to get it done. I don't have that many hours in the day to myself to work on these things. And a lot of times I'm trying to balance putting laundry in the washer and then write some and then go do something else. And I just think, God, this is so hard. But what keeps me going is knowing that he has called me to be a disciple maker and to be a disciple. And I believe this is the way that he has called me to make disciples. And so it's such hard work, but it's worth it. It is so worth it. And so if I keep numbers, if numbers become what my goal is, there's no joy, there's no purpose, and it's not going to come together. But if my purpose is I want to know Jesus, I want to make him known, I want to become more like him, I want others to know Jesus, I want others to make him known, I want others to become more like him, then that's what makes it worth it. And so that's my encouragement for you today. I don't know where you are in a dreaming big process. I don't know. Like I said, some of you said you're not quite there even with dreaming big, but I pray that if you're not, that you would just look to who Jesus is, and that your idea of dreaming big would just be, I want to live like Jesus. I want to live like him. At the end of the day, I don't want to look back with regret. I want to look back and say, Jesus, I did all I could for you, because all you have is today. You don't have the promise of tomorrow or the future, or maybe you've got this 5-year dream and it's going to look like this someday. You don't have the promise that it's going to look like that, and we don't know what the future is, but we do know that today is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Psalm 118:24. And that's what we can do. We can just say, God, this is the day you've made. This is the dream you've given. I'm going to take baby steps. I'm going to be faithful in the little things, and I'm going to rejoice and be glad in you. So that's, I just wanted to hop on and share that. It's super random. I guess, 2 random thoughts before I go and get, Nolan, who has taken a very, very short nap today. Actually, he's back asleep. I don't know if y'all can see him, but he's back asleep. 2 things. If y'all, I'm making this journal right now. And so, since he's back asleep, I have like 5 more minutes. But if you go on Instagram, I would love for you to help me in making this. I pray through all of the verses that go in it. I pray through the content. So if God wants me to tweak anything, change anything, I pray about all of that every time. And I lay it all out before the Lord, and I just sit here, and it's actually the fun part of just looking through my Bible and going, what verses do you want in here? And so I would love to hear from y'all. If you comment on Instagram, I want to know some verses that have been life-changing for you, some things that have literally just been markers in your life. And maybe it's a song, maybe it's a quote, something like that. But I want to hear those things from you and to possibly include them in the journal. I've learned so many new things just through y'all participating with me in this part of the journey. And so if you could do that, that would be really, really awesome, because I want you to be a part of this creating and just worshiping the Lord as we come together. And then the other thing is, tomorrow we're starting our Well-Watered Women series on Periscope. So I'll be back on tomorrow too. Talking about what does it mean to be a well-watered woman. And we'll be using the Well-Watered Women study, but if you don't have it, that's okay, because we're just going to talk about it. We're going to open up conversations about how we can be women who live faithfully to the Lord and fully and abundantly in him in the everyday life. So I hope that y'all will join me. I'm hoping it'll be tomorrow morning, but I have a baby, and so it's just hard to have a super consistent time. But since he's back asleep, I just want to, do y'all have any questions since I don't have to hop off right away? Do y'all have any questions or anything? If y'all have got anything. But again, that was just I just wanted to hop on and share that since I was in the middle of working on that. And could you post what you read earlier? What did I don't remember what that was. Wait, are you going to go with a theme for colors? Is there a time you frame? What is your, okay, I just saw a bunch of questions. So first one, Instagram name at LifeLivedBeautifully. Second, okay, I see that one too, to choose joy. Second one, somebody asked, could I post what I read earlier? I don't remember was that something that I said earlier? I think I just talked a lot and I don't remember if I said something about something I read, if it was a verse, maybe comment on Instagram and I'll figure out what I need to share with you because I can't remember. Someone asked if I share if I do professional printing. Yes, we do. We have a printer in Atlanta who prints everything and they're awesome. And that's where our everything ships from is, the poem you wrote. Yes. Okay. Yes. If you comment on Instagram, I'll reply back to you with that poem. It's just something random I wrote as a prayer. Just a short part of it. But, yes, everything is printed professionally. Yeah. So this time tomorrow, actually, I think we're going to do in the morning tomorrow. I'm on, Eastern time and, somebody's going to help me with Nolan in the morning. Which study do you recommend for plugging into God again? I miss his voice. I just recommend starting in the Word. Just start in Matthew and just ask for the Lord to speak. I love this quote. I don't remember who said it, but they said every morning when we come to the Lord to say, speak, Lord, and life will become a romance. And I pray Psalm 119:18 a lot and start praying scripture out loud before you start reading. I pray out loud in the morning before I start. And it's just something powerful and just welcome the Lord to come speak to you. But I think it's Psalm 119:18. I would look at that verse. I'm looking it up real quick. Yes. Okay. It says, open my eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of your law. But I would just start in the Gospels again. To choose joy. It's, do you want to just email me and I can, it's a local company and I would suggest to, if anybody's looking into printing something, to find somewhere local, just to, first of all, to support a local business. Sorry, I should have gotten water. To support a local business. And then also you're going to save a lot on shipping because shipping things like this is very expensive to ship a lot of journals or a lot of something. And so local is definitely the way to go. I missed a bunch of questions. Did I miss anything? Y'all can, and if I did, you can ask me some other time too. If there's no other questions, then I'll hop off and I'll let y'all go for the day. But, yeah, let's continue to dream big for his glory. Are there scopes from the Planted Study on Catch? Yes. Every time I did one of those, I did hashtag LLB, planted. So you can know that. Tori, I saw you ask color theme for the new journal. I'll show y'all that really quick. So it's super messy over here. But I pick out new colors every time, so I'm going to pull these colors up and you can kind of see. But the new journal is going to be super springy, and I paint everything. I'm pulling up some of the colors. Okay, so here are some of the colors. I'll show y'all the painting whenever it's done. So it's going to be super springy. Let's see. Here's just a few of the colors. So yeah, I just want it to be really springy and feminine and beautiful. And then for those of y'all who haven't been following Life Live Beautifully for a long time, this is hilarious, but this is the first journal, y'all. It does not look good. So I had no idea what I was doing. It wasn't really good quality. I had no idea. So this was the very first journal ever made. Does not exist anymore, but I love looking back at it and seeing God's faithfulness. And then these are previous journals. And so some of y'all have seen these. These are previous. We don't sell these anymore. Here's another one that we had. Here's another one. And then this one. Oh, Sherry, I saw that you have that one. Yeah, that was a long time ago. So, yeah, here's some of the previous journals. And we do them spiral bound, so it's easy for you to lay them flat. But yeah, so that's a few of them, and we've got one more. Yeah, so we did that one a long time ago. Which one do I have now? Right now in stock, we have this one. And then we also have, sorry guys, we have this one. So these are the two. Someone asked, did I see something about Elizabeth Elliot? Did someone ask something about Elizabeth Elliot? She's one of my favorite authors. I've got this book sitting out. That is a great one. We need a left-handed journal. Heather, my mom is right there, and she is left-handed too. But this is a great Elizabeth Elliot book. Did y'all have another, was there an Elizabeth Love that, what others do you recommend? Okay, so she's written a lot of things. One thing I recommend is just research Elizabeth Elliot newsletter online. All of her newsletters are online for free, and I read them all the time. It's like this hidden Elizabeth Elliot secret that nobody knows about, but this is a compilation of newsletters, and you can find them all for free online. So I would definitely do that.